So imagine someone walks up to you, hits you once, and then...
Oh no!
A few moments later.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, tarnished of all ages, as I introduce to you the quad status. With every swing of your pair of rapiers, you build bars and decimate your enemies. This is seriously fun and quite literally only possible with one single weapon in the entire game. And this isn't even about the statuses. Thanks to a very specific concoction of talismans, you can completely and utterly delete bosses while piling on these statuses. Sorry, Briar.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer.
And I'm also here to present to you two variations of the build. One, the full 4 statuses, and two, just the 3. Just a measly 3, but more of a focus on your actual stab damage. First and foremost, let us get the weapon of the day. It is the Antspur Rapier. You get this from the left of the shaded castle. Just ride up into the open field until you eventually bump in to Melee Marius, shaded castle Castellan. Promptly murder and rob her, and you will have acquired her rapier, the Antspur one. The reason this weapon is required is because it is the only scarlet rot inflicting weapon capable of having the seppuku Ashes of War, and that combination is the key that unlocks the door to the glory that you are seeing unfold. Because scarlet rot isn't a status we can put on weapons via any of the whetstones, via affinitying it with an Ashes of War, we have to choose a scarlet rot weapon as base because we want a scarlet rot, we want maximum status build up here. And because it's a rapier, we can put seppuku on it, which lets us affinity it for poison, which means once we activate seppuku and, give ourselves a bit of the old, oh, that's so good, we have a weapon that inflicts massive blood loss, massive poison, and massive scarlet rot, coupled with arcane scaling now, and that just enhances it even further. This is pretty cool. But we have 2 hands, which means if we acquire a second Antspur Rapier, either from New Game Plus or get a friend to drop it for you, in our left hand, we can give it a Ash of War by the name of Chilling Mist. We can then set that to Ice, of course, and we have ourselves a Rot and Ice weapon. You buff one hand up with seppuku, you buff the other hand up with enhanced Frost build-up, and then suddenly you're swinging for, well, 4 statuses at once, piling them on, exploding enemies with blood, exploding them with frost, which then makes them take 20% more damage, or at least lowers their defenses by 20%, then rot and poisons kick in and start melting the health bar, so you can essentially just kind of run around in a circle while the enemy dies. In both PvE and PvP. Yeah, it is quite incredibly effective, and it's so much fun. I love status build-up in Souls, and this really is the way to capitalize on it. And of course, in the background, you've been seeing where to get the seppuku Ash of War and where to get the Chilling Mist Ash of War to make this setup sing. But what else do we need? Well, a certain set of talismans. Well, 2 specifically. The other 2 are whatever you think will work best for you. I would recommend a Sorcery, Radagans, and likely Rotten Wing Talisman from Millicent's questline in the Hallig Tree. Way too lengthy of a questline to just insert into here, but definitely one worth doing because the rewards are great. And indeed, I will link a video down below to guide you through that. Basically, what this means is every 3 attacks, your damage increases by 4% up to around 30%. And as we're power stancing rapiers, we're going to be attacking very quickly and building this up massively. The other 2 then are the real engine to power this. Because we're building up massive blood loss with seppuku, well, we want a lot of Blood's Exultation. This basically means when blood loss happens near us, and yes, this triggers from the self buff of seppuku, we gain plus 20% damage. This is gotten under Lanedale. After a fair bit of running round quite the convoluted little dungeon, you will eventually get to its holder and, well, relieve him of it. We also then want another very, very similar talisman, but for rot and poison. The Kindred of Rot Exultation. And you guessed it, yes, when poison and rot go off, you get another plus 20% damage. Which means after attacking the, boss, the enemy, the person for a little bit, you will find yourself on plus 70% damage. Which is ludicrously good on top of the statuses you're piling on and making things very, very difficult. So that's really all of the pieces of the puzzle. However, I would like to share with you a slight modification. You may have noticed this, but there is a slight bug at the moment, which means if you have a Frost Affinity Antspur and you upgrade it past plus, I think it's 6, it will actually just lose all the Scarlet Rot buildup. As far as I'm aware, that's not supposed to happen. One status isn't supposed to strip another. It reduces it, sure, but it doesn't make it plummet to 0. There's definitely something weird happening here. So if we accept that will be fixed in the future and we'll make the Frost version of this even better, for now we can just go full blood loss, poison, and rot. So we make both weapons seppuku'd up weapons by duplicating the Ash of War at the blacksmith in the Round Table Hold, set to the poison affinity. Now you can set one to poison and one to pure bleed for even faster bleed. It doesn't really matter which way, it's whichever you want to lean more towards. I find double poison works better to get that poison filled faster and trigger the Rot's Exultation faster, but in either case you do absolutely delete enemies once you start attacking for even just a couple seconds. This way we absolutely power up the poison, power up the blood loss, power up the Scarlet Rot, and have the enemy just slowly melting away as we absolutely hit it like a truck, because hey, we're massively buffed thanks to the talismans and how they interact with this. So it really is just a win-win. You're not really sacrificing any general offensive power to also have the extra pressure applied by a triple status build-up. It really is fantastic fun, and Power Stancing Rapiers is also just great. I really like the moveset that it gives. And of course in PvP, well, it's annoying as hell to give someone both poison and rot and then just run away from them until they die. Most people don't carry the restoration items that cancel the status, so they just kind of panic. You can also trade incredibly effectively because no one wants to be trading when the result of that trade is they get hammered by a, well, screen-filling amount of statuses. It is scary, and the psychological warfare cannot be understated. You just get stronger and stronger and stronger as the fight goes on, and you can afford to be incredibly hyper-aggressive because you will just simply out-damage most people, and that is very, very satisfying. Stats-wise, you want at least 50 arcane. That is the soft cap that's about right. More than that isn't really worth it. That will power the blood and poison side of things. You want to get to also about 50 int if you're going the frost route. If not, put the points that would go into int into more strength and dex just for a little bit more scaling. The rest is endurance figure, as you might imagine. You don't really need FP at all. You're not really doing anything other than seppukuing, so all's well there. There isn't then much left to say. It is quite simply just incredibly satisfying, incredibly fun to build that many statuses. Frost and Bleed just melts bosses as it does players. The Poison and the Scarlet Rot gives you a, let's say, more patient option to combat that lets you stay safe as they completely disappear. And generally speaking, it's just unique, right? It's quite a stars aligning. A Rot Rapier that takes seppuku that can be affinited with poison. I mean, this was just asking for it to happen, and happen it has. Let me know what you think of this build. Let me know if you're happy to try it yourself. The arcane fixing has just meant this is so much better with statuses piling faster and faster on to your target. Please remember to subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss future builds, funny bits, guides, tips and tricks, you know the drill. Like if you have indeed had a good time, and please consider supporting the future of this channel on Patreon down below. So, until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.